What do you think is the most are the most important values and attitudes that our youth should have in order to ensure that our country continues to thrive and prosper? Thank you.
Thrive.
I can list them. It'll take quite some time to
List. Take.
if I explain them. But
Explain.
you should have the same values and attitudes that your father or your grandfather had. Are you born and bred here?
Born. Bred.
Yes.
Yeah. Your father too?
Yes.
Your grandfather?
No.
Well, your grandfather probably worked harder than your father because he came here as a migrant.
Came.
As you can see, our new migrants, they
Pushed.
push very hard to succeed in the foreign land.
Succeed.
It was that spirit that got us here. Had we
Spirit.
not had people with that ruggedness, that robust attitude,
Robust attitude. Ruggedness.
we'll make it do or die. We wouldn't have
Do or die.
today's Singapore. I'm not sure if I go back to 1959 and start with today's generation,
Generation.
bred and brought up in comfort, you know,
Brought up.
there's no discomfort from the HDB flat
Discomfort.
with an air conditioner in your room or your
Air conditioner.
dining room to walk down, and you got a covered
Cover.
walkway to the bus stop. So you don't have to get wet. You don't even have to carry an umbrella.
Carry.
Or you take the MRT. Now that's all right, provided you keep that
Keep.
at the back of your mind. This place is what it is because of our effort.
Effort.
You cease to make that effort, you cease to
Cease.
be like this. Let me explain briefly what I mean by that. Your father and grandfather's generation lived a hard life.
Lived.
Very few people had homes of their own. In Chinatown, you have cubicles, 8 or 10 people in the
Cubicles.
room, sharing 4 bunks because they do shift work, save money. So
Shift work.
Lim Kim San, who built our HDB flats,
Built.
once went to a Chinatown cubicle, and the man covered himself with a blanket.
Blanket.
Pretty warm. So I said, "Why are you with a blanket?" He said, "Because my friend is using my trousers." This is a real story. It's not
Story. Trousers.
one of these fanciful creations of his own.
Fanciful.
Then he understood how poor we were. If you
Understood.
lived in those conditions and you get a flat, 1 room, which is what we started with, communal bathroom, communal kitchen,
Communal.
running hot and cold, water closet. That's from
closet, closet,
the lowest depths of the ship to a deck with a window with a pothole and air
deck, deck, pothole, pothole,
coming in. And from that, to go to a 3-room or 4-room or 5-room flat, you go up to the higher levels of the ship. And finally now we've got executive flats and condominiums.
condominiums, condominiums,
That means you're on a cruise ship at the very
cruise ship, cruise ship,
top. Now, I have watched my grandchildren grow up,
grow up, grow up,
and they are growing up much more comfortably
comfortably, comfortably,
than my children. My wife and I made sure that they became self-reliant and not somebody who will pick up the balls for them. As Prime
pick up,
Minister was given a house at Sri Temasek,
was given,
so I took them there one day to play. And Sri Temasek is on high ground. They're playing with the ball rolled down. And the butler ran about 50 or 60 yards to pick up the ball and bring it back. My wife and I watched that and said, no, if we stay here for 5 years, my children will grow up believing that life is like that.
unbelieving,
And that somebody will always pick up balls for them. We stay at home. And I think that's been good for them. And that is the problem we face today.
face,
Many of the parents who are in these HDB flats started like the people in Chinatown. They understand what it is to be poor. Today's children do not understand what it is to be poor. But you can intellectually and emotionally
emotionally, intellectually,
understand that if you don't make the same effort, you go back to where you were. Because I was once asked to make a speech in Sydney.
asked,
It was the 200th anniversary. And I come from New Zealand. And at Sydney, they told me no speeches. So I made no preparation. And suddenly the
preparations,
chief minister stood up, made a speech. I had to reply. So I replied with what was
foremost,
in my mind. I said, as I flew over New Zealand
flew over,
and watched the green fields and the sheep and the cows and the small little houses dotted around.
dotted,
3 million people then. I thought to myself, if I come back in 100 years, I'll see the same scene.
scene,
Probably more sheep, more cows, and not much more people. And I thought to myself, what will happen to Singapore in 100 years? I don't know. Can we get the same generation, successive generations to understand that
successive,
we have built this edifice?
edifice,
This is a 100-story building built on an
extremely,
narrow foundation but piled deep and structured in such a way
structured,
that the winds won't blow it down. To do that, you need a people with a drive and a leadership that anticipates the future.
anticipates,
You vote in a dead lot. Even though you work
You vote in a dead lot. You vote in a dead lot.
hard, you'll work hard to no purpose.
No purpose. No purpose.
You know how carefully we are choosing our
Choosing. Choosing.
ministers? We throw the net wide.
Throw. Throw.
Not just scholars. Every successful man,
Scholars. Scholars. Successful. Successful.
before he's successful, he must have some inner drive in him.
Inner drive. Inner drive.
Something that makes him make the right
Makes.
judgments in life. So we
Judgments. Judgments.
throw it across society. Finally, we put them through psychometric tests. Values, attitude, life story, how you were brought up and so on. And your values. Some people are naturally religious.
Naturally religious. Naturally religious.
Some people are naturally socially conscious.
Socially conscious. Socially conscious.
Some are economically driven, and so on.
Economically driven. Economically driven.
So we have a fairly good profile which
Reduces. Reduces.
the risk. Then we take them in as MPs, test them out, and as junior ministers, see their metals,
Metals. Metals.
see whether they can swim in the deep end of the pool. Then finally, after 2 terms, you become a minister, by which time we have seen the metal in the man. And no other country does that. But we have ministers out of 3 million people who can talk to Chinese ministers, American secretaries of state and secretaries of treasury and so on, or any European nation, at the same level. Intellectually, we are not inferior to them.
Inferior. Inferior.
But they are just the top
Top cream. Top cream.
cream of Singapore. Whereas on the other side, they are part of a pretty wide, thick spectrum of cream.
Spectrum. Spectrum.
So it's easy to choose. Now we need these 2 things. Then you've got today's Singapore. Then you've got this cultural hall. Then we can sit down and talk about what will happen in 50 years. Otherwise, we'll be scratching a living. So please don't forget that.